Nothing good could come from wandering around downtown in the middle of the day. Well, you never know. After jumping from one building to the next, I decided to walk down a deserted hallway toward my favorite Chinese restaurant. It was time of day when most people my age would be at school, so walking around carelessly would get you chased down by the cops before you knew it. Until you turned 18, the legal age here, it was mandatory that you belonged to some sort of educational institution. I imagine that doesn't jive with your plans for the future, am I right? Some people would say this was a good thing, while others grumbled something about government-funded programs. I fell into neither camp. My way of dealing with systems I didn't like was to quietly escape them, not too loudly criticize them. On that note, this area, with all its complicated passages and extreme elevation changes, it's not odd to see the 7th floor of one building be next to the basement of another, was convenient for people like me. Not to mention the overgrown vegetation here that acted as good cover. These plants weren't originally included in the city plans, but had leaked out of one of the many lunar laboratories where they're messing with their genes. Supposedly, genes had tons of factors that express themselves differently depending on the environment, so a lot of plants and animals started acting strangely as soon as they were brought to the moon. There were even people saying that life forms on Earth could have originated from outer space and brought to Earth via the moon. How the hell does that make sense? Whatever. Some of these plants grew so well on the moon's inorganic matter that you might wonder if they'd been around here for a million years. Of course, it was as if these plants were free from the laws of physics. Nitrogen and other nutrients for them were often brought over from Earth. So I hadn't heard about any worries that the surface of the moon would be taken over by the greenery. This applied to more than just plants. As for humans here, it didn't matter how ultralight think tanks came to energize the lunar economy and its industries. Life here just wasn't sustainable without sending a lot of things over from Earth. According to the government's statements, if the orbital elevator were to stop moving today, there was currently enough biomass here to create an enclosed recycling-based environment. In other words, we'd be able to eat food, crap it out, then use it to crap the crap to grow more food to eat and so on. They'd be able to make a ton of electricity with solar panels while collecting direct sunlight to use a super hot source of heat, so maybe they're right. I mean, people say even Earth was in more danger environmentally since they still rely on oil and nuclear power. I didn't know who was right. Whatever the case, I had dreams, and if it meant making my dreams come true, I didn't care if I was on the Earth or on the moon. There you go, kid. Shoot for the moon. You'll hit the stars, but you're already on the moon, so I guess it's the stars for you. After all, my dream was to stand at the forefront of humanity. I thought your dream was to live in a rich city on the moon. You're confusing me, kid. What is the deal? Alright then, let's see. It'd be a place where you could only look forward and live by advancing onward. Who cared what happened to the world behind you? And if I couldn't make this dream come true, then there'd be no reason for me to live. That was why I had to put it logically. I'd never worried a single bit about the moon's environment or whatever. What I was worried about was how much money I made and how fast I reached my goals. While I was thinking about these things, I passed through the thickly vegetated tunnel towards high ground. And scene transition. It was a clear day, as it always was. On the other side of a translucent membrane, the visible half of the mist-covered Earth looked small. The sky over the lunar city was wrapped in a see-through dome, and right beyond it was outer space. Gravity was weak on the moon, so you couldn't naturally keep large amounts of gases stored up on the surface. Also, while apparently each 24-hour day on Earth had a morning, afternoon, and night, which was followed by the next day by another morning, the moon alternated between 2-week days and 2-week nights. Perfect place for vampires. However, the human body cycle was set differently, thanks to tens of thousands of years living on Earth. Because most of the people living on the moon were immigrants from Earth, its dome was adjusted to give off light in an Earth-like way. It even had sprinklers attached to it so that it would rain. However, I had only seen things like downpours and thunderstorms in videos. I guess you wouldn't have those on the moon, would you? Artificial environment and such. When it rained here, it was always just a drizzle. Strong winds never blew here. The only winds felt here were slow, coiling movement of the atmosphere due to centrifugal and Coriolis forces, as well as the gentle breeze of the air inside the dome being mechanically circulated. I strayed from the street onto a grass-covered cliff and jumped upward with a grunt. Ha! I kicked off a tree branch and rotated my body to, geez, you gotta dictate everything, don't you? This was a box seat where you can look down on the greater part of this city. Ooh, I grabbed some beef jerky out of my bag and bit into it. According to the guys who came from Earth, this wasn't at all close to the real thing, but it's the only beef jerky I ever knew. There were a number of cities on the moon. The one I lived in was the very first city to be created, and I could get a clear view of the whole thing from here. The spot in front of me where pointed skyscrapers sprung upward one after the other was called Newton City. It wasn't like entry here was regulated. Blech. However, it had the feel of a special zone where only certain people could enter. Since it was full of giant corporate buildings, even public places like shopping malls and parks were overrun with police and city regulations. Most wealth here was created in Newton City, and you could find famous tycoons with assets worth over 10 billion mools, it's a stupid name for money, all over the place. If you had that much wealth, you undoubtedly be able to be at the forefront when humanity took its next step. Money could make just about any desire you might have in this world come true. In this world, money ruled all. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty true of most things. It's true of today. And like a photograph at the moment, blah, 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 dead city. Okay, the area where middle-class people worked in Newton City was called Green City, or the White Belt. It was a place full of people who loved words like high society and refinement. The kind of people who claimed to care about grace and harmony, but were really full of nothing but pride and obsessions with upward mobility. Whenever I went there, I felt sick seeing the sterilized rows of small, nicely manicured lawns and white-walled buildings. There wasn't a single piece of garbage on the streets, and the only plants around were domesticated trees on the roadside. After that, the buildings in the area around Green City got taller again, but it was a complete jumble. There, power lines dangled messily onto the streets, and vulgar neon signs lit the area, painting the whole place with a feel of squalor. Ugh, poverty. The area was called the Outer Sections, and while technically they'd all been numbered 1 to 8, there was no real point. If you considered Newton City the center of everything, the north was full of factories. There you could find silicon dioxide dissolution factories, fertilizer synthesis factories, automated plantations, and so on. On the east side was the village where I lived. That area was notorious for its hard-nosed residents. You could also find settlements of old-timers, you might call artisans in the area, which made for a countless number of small workshops. Most people didn't have the luxury of being able to do something like transport wooden furniture via orbital elevator, and land was expensive on the moon, so the houses of Green City were small. You don't need much space. As a result, handmade furniture created with the size and shape of your house in mind was far more popular than ready-made furniture. I was told that my parents were aiming to live together with plants bought from Earth in exchange for making furniture out of wood. Even though factories existed that used the best scientific advances to maximize harvest rates as much as physically possible, they still grew plants by hand for some reason. They seemed to at least have their customers, but I didn't see a single enjoyable thing about being covered in dirt. It just made me wonder why they even came to the moon in the first place. This wasn't a place for stuff like that. The moon was supposed to be a place where you directed your gaze to the top of the inorganic buildings that line Newton City. And if I shifted my eyes to the left, I saw an area haunted by those who couldn't keep up with the struggle. Here, when buildings started rusting, no one would bother to repaint them. It had been nicknamed the Red Valley. The reason it was called a valley was because when Newton City was originally built on a flat crater floor, all the low-income earners made the Rocky Mountains surrounding the city their home. And by Rocky Mountains, I don't mean something like the harsh mountain environments you might find on Earth. It was closer to what you might call highlands. As a result, the rock was chipped away to increase surface area. Oh my God, can we get on with it? It was evident. Shut up! Move on! Oh, not much more than a decade had passed since the city's blah, 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 blah. Oh, while it was true that people living there could be called outcasts and failures, the place was irresponsible in a good way, and that put me at ease. Move on. Holy crap, man. Seriously? Oh, of course I had no intentions of becoming the 20% that lived there. And finally, the area I was in right now was called the 6 Outer Section. It was not as degenerate as the Red Valley, but it was not quite as productive as the east side of town. Fucking move on. This area didn't have a nickname yet, and its lackadaisical aspects oozed out of every turn. Oozed like a festering wound. While the buildings of the dirty city wore out, it was dotted... I'm gonna try and do this quick. It was dotted with small companies who dreamed of Newton City and the occasional decent-looking house, so it wasn't even the worst place to live. Oh, God, shaky shake! And now, as I stood up, back jogged off, please bring back the music. Oh, thank God. The road was paved with neatly shaved limestone rocks. It was chipped and cracked here and there, but no one was ever tried to patch it. The rough dirt on the moon had piled up. Oh, for God's sakes, man. I understand this is how the game's going to go, but holy crap, it just details the shit out of everywhere I go. I'm afraid that if I go to do anything in this game, I'm going to get like a 20-page document about it. It's just like, the woman stood in front of me. She appeared to be wearing clothing made from fabric. Fabric, as I understand it, is a sort of, see, I can't even think of it. Like, it's just, my mind is hurting, right? Move on. Waterways, final destruction was a giant water processing plant in Noon City. In other words, everything was designed to gather at the center. From there, holy, come on, man. Talk to somebody. Jesus Christ, you're boring the shit out of me here. Come on. Oh, you finally got to the restaurant. Yeah, strong spirit. Immigrate to the moon. I could sit down whenever I wanted and they wouldn't say a word. However, the elderly wife's health had been fading recently, and the woman who sometimes worked at the restaurant in their place was a bit of a pain. You might even go far as to say she was an outright bitch, but I didn't say this out loud because I go to great lengths to detail everything I see in front of me. While I prayed that she wouldn't be there today, it was in vain, especially on an unlucky day already full of policemen and stock losses, and uppity Chinese women, and failing health Chinese women, and Chinese restaurants, and the overly detailed explanation of everything I see, smell, taste, and hear. Oh my God, go inside. Okay, finally, we're here. Woo! Holy crap. This guy's gotta be a delight at parties. I would hate talking with him. I'd want to punch him. I want to punch him now. Oh. As I opened the frosted glass door, the woman watching the television placed near the ceiling with her head resting in her arms propped up on the counter, lowered her glance listlessly. Oh, you got a little cross there. Is that an accessory, or do you believe in Jesus? While I was overcome with the urge to just shut the door and go to another store, the woman raised her voice before I got the chance. Ahem. Table for one. Great. The kitchen was run by silent, stubborn, elderly husband of the family who... he never showed any signs of affection. Ah, good. Of course, no reply came from the kitchen. Oy. Even so, it was too late to leave, so I entered the store with a heavy gait and set up camp in a corner seat. While mountains of hydrocarbons sat at the moon's poles, they still couldn't be used for luxuries such as making plastic. As a result, most of the store's equipment came from either wood or iron. Both could be gathered on the moon and were easily decomposable by microbes. God damn it, just order some top ramen and shut up. An iron cup was placed with a clang on my tattered wooden table, which was no doubt found in a dump somewhere. Holy crap, kid. The woman, beaming, then poured me water from high up. The water seemed like it should splash out. Oh, for God's sakes.
You showed up, you little delinquent.
Wait. Oh, this is me. Crab omelet over fried rice. I made my order bluntly without a proper reply. I just assumed, okay? I don't need you to... The woman was about 20 years old, had bright, healthy hair. How does someone have bright, healthy hair? What does that even mean? 'Cause it's pink? She'd been working here for a while and seemed to know a lot of the customers, so she probably lived in the area. You think?
One crab fried.
The woman yelled cheerfully towards the kitchen. Oh,
One crab fried.
one crab fried. Whatever. The woman yelled cheerfully towards the kitchen. Then of all the things she could have done, she sat down across from me. Oh, please talk to me. I don't want to be left alone with my inner thoughts. Except her body was off to the side and her vision was fixed on the TV. She seemed interested in some plot point in the drama she was watching. Oh, are you enjoying the stories? Oh, God, I gotta do this voice. Hold on a second. I need a drink here. Okay.
I heard the actor there is in the area right now. He's going to negotiate his next title and bask in space at the same time. A beautiful actress from around here's accompanying him.
I didn't ask, but she informed me anyway. She might be trying to have a conversation with you, douchebag. I ended up glancing at the screen as I silently took my PC out of my bag.
He's a little too handsome, though.
While that might be true, I stifled my urge to reply with a "so what" as I placed my PC on the table and switched it on. The PC was loaded with financial information and charts of historical prices for the 4,000 stocks on the Lunar Stock Exchange. You're boring as hell. In order to make a profit tomorrow, I had to find my next target.
Woo, want to use our power?
I raised my glance after being asked a question and found my eyes meeting the woman's.
Human contact. Away! Be gone!
I don't know. How the hell would you react to that? You're a strange kid. She had beautiful almond-shaped eyes. You're really just... Oh, God. That were even brighter in color than her hair. No. No, we're not looking at the same person. I would say her hair is brighter than her eyes. You really just... How much time have you spent around people, dude? She must have led an easy life, I thought to myself. Nevertheless, it'd be helpful if I could use the restaurant's electricity. Even if I did decide to go back to the half-assed net cafe, the rates were cheaper at night. The problem was my battery wouldn't last until then. Okay. I silently took my adapter and plugged it into the cord that the woman, still seated, had lazily dragged my way with her foot. She offered you power, buddy. Who cares how she gets it to you? As I hugged the ground in order to plug my adapter in the outlet, the woman mischievously twitched the toes in her sandals. How do you mischievously twitch toes? It's like she coiled her pinky finger with villainous intent, the likes of which had not been seen since the KGB. Or she curled her toes into a fist like a talented boxer who had won several gold Olympic medals. You're reading into way too much, man. I gotta take a break from this. This kid's frustrating me. I'm liking where it's going, kinda, because wait, hold on a second. What are you saying?
Perv.
What? Hold on. No, we're not done yet. That was what she said to me once I raised my head, but she wasn't even wearing a skirt. I didn't know that. Naturally, I ignored it and booted up my PC. After that, the woman stopped messing with me, and the only sounds in the restaurant were the filtered voices from the television and the swinging pots in the kitchen.
Wah!
I'm assuming. Was he doing kung fu back there? Yeah, okay, this is just more of you talking way too much about nothing. Okay, so, despite the fact that this kid's overanalyzation of everything from dust to the wind, I'm actually enjoying myself. It's kind of fun to rip this thing apart. Not to say that I'm ripping the game apart. I like the game. I just love giving shit to the main character because he just over-details everything he does. And it's probably going to be that way for the rest of the game, but hey, should be fun. I'm hoping I actually get to mess with some stock market stuff, though, because, that's kind of why I'm here. Anyway, hope you guys are enjoying this one. We'll pick it up again later with... we'll call him Analytical Man, or The Analyst. Ooh, that sounds better. The Analyst, and Pink Hair McGreen Eyes, the Sandal Wearer. Next time on World and Economica. So, until then, my name's Ryan. You guys take care of yourselves.